Before we begin, you must know one thing about me first, and that is, I am 100% against long, pointless introductions where you hear so obvious statements about the game you are clearly into, and you probably already know this stuff. You know what Sekiro is. I know what Sekiro is. You are here for the iceberg and I hate coming up with introductions, so maybe we just, dive into it already? What would you say for that? Stop. There is one thing that I despise more than boring introductions, and that is not crediting contribution of others. This video would not be possible without Reddit user MaleficTechX, who created this iceberg image. Stay till the end to hear his message for all of the Sekiro fans. I also wanna thank this amazing Sekiro community. Mostly, they are the ones who came up with theories I'm about to talk. Link to all the theories, basically all the source material, can be found in the description below. Having that out of the way, enjoy the video. Miss Noble True Power. We start our journey with rather interesting theory. Miss Noble is a mini-boss you encounter in a forest outside Meeble village. Let's be honest, this fight is a pushover. Technically, he is responsible for the illusory warriors you meet in the forest. His abilities led to the creation of this really interesting theory. It goes like this. The Miss Noble actually survives the encounter with Sekiro. What we kill is merely an illusion. In fact, the theory tells us the rest of the game is just that, an illusion. And one-armed wolf is forever trapped in this illusion. One of the evidences supporting this theory is the fact that a Miss Noble is way too easy to defeat. Later in the game we meet more of his kind, members of Okami clan, and they are more than capable of defeating us. Simply said, something doesn't add up here. Demon of Hatred. You probably know this is the name of the hardest boss in the game. Well, at least for some players, including me. Still, there are people that don't know about it at all, cause he's a secret boss. At the end of the game, during Ministry Invasion, if you decide to go left, you eventually spot a Buddha shrine that wasn't there before. It teleports you to the castle gate, and there you see him. The demon of flames raging around the location. The Truth of Senpu. Senpu Temple and its monks play an important part in Ashina history. If you want more in-depth video on the subject, covering monks' hierarchy, their motives, traditions, let me know. Maybe I make such a video, or watch Vadi's video instead. Anyways, what is the truth behind Senpu Temple? Kidnapping, experimenting, and basically going full on the quiet church with experimenting on children might be a good candidate for the secret that they are hiding. This entry may also refer to the hidden realm, where the divine child of rejuvenation hides from the monks. Honestly, this mountain conceals many secrets. Why did the monks abandon the teachings of Buddha? Why do we find mummified monks without centipedes inside them? Did the centipedes abandon their hosts, or were they expelled by the priests somehow? But there is one more secret. The highest priest. His corpse can be found with other mummies without centipedes. From his writing we learn that the only right thing to get rid of the decay is to return the dragon's heritage back to the east, whatever that means. Sake dialogue. I believe that everyone who played Sekiro is aware of this mechanic at this point, so I'll try to be quick. Basically, there are 4 types of sake you can find around Ashina. Unrefined sake, Dragon Spring sake, Ashina sake, and Monkey Booze. It's a drink meant to be shared, and there are 3 people with who you can share it. Lord Ishin, Emma, and Sculptor. They give you different dialogues depending on the sake you gave them.
That's some good sake. This is how we drank when we won our battles. The people of Ashina, together as one.
Could you tell me about the rebellion?
Oh, the rebellion.
You can learn quite a lot about the world, the characters, from those dialogues. Some of the drinks can be pretty hard to find, but it's well-known mechanics, so yeah, its placement in the first tier is much justified. Divine Confetti power-up. Remember Pine Resin from Dark Souls? Divine Confetti works in a similar way, only in Sekiro there is just one type of this power-up. It's fairly rare for the most of the game, but later you can buy unlimited amount of them for only 300 cents each. There is nothing secret as far as I'm aware about this item. It increases your damage by 25% for 1 minute and greatly increases damage dealt to the partition enemies such as the Headless or Shishimen Warrior. Time Travel Paradox. While playing the game, you stumble upon an old lady.
Oh, is that you, Inosuke? My son. Have you seen the young master?
She mistakes you for her son and asks you to make a prayer for her. She gives you a bell. Praying with that bell transports you to the memory of past events, to the Hirata estate in the night when bandits attacked the Hirata grounds. The Sekiro community can't decide on this subject. Some say that it's just a memory of those events, a memory that can be altered. Which would explain why Sekiro uses his prosthetic arm way before his arm was cut off by Genichiro. On the other hand, some say that we literally go back in time. They point at the fact that there are many items, prosthetics included, that we bring back from the past. I assume that this entry is about the second scenario. If we literally go back in time, there are many things that don't add up. I already mentioned the prosthetic arm. Another time paradox could be the fight with Father Owl. He is the one who kills Sekiro after Lady Butterfly fight. If we go back to Hirata estate using other bell, we can face our foster father and kill him. But we know that he didn't die that night. So again, something doesn't add up. Furthermore, if you decide to kill Anayama the Paddler in the past, he is the merchant that sells you information in the beginning of the game. He disappears in the present. The true ending? Question mark? Maybe? There are 4 endings in Sekiro. Some of them are harder to read than others. The true ending author is referring here is probably either the Dragon's Homecoming ending or the Purification ending. I assume that because they are kinda the hardest. The Purification ending assumes that you obtain an Everblossom. Then you can sever the immortality without killing Kuro. For the other ending, Wolf must obtain frozen tears from the Child of Rejuvenation. Then Sekiro and Kuro leave Ashina to return the dragon's blood to the birthplace of the Divine Dragon. If you wanna know which ending is canon, I would say, unless there is a sequel, all of them are, it doesn't matter. The true monk's identity. This is gonna be good, so stay with me. True Monks is a boss guarding the entrance to the Fountainhead Palace. Her true name is Princess Yao, and she is very likely inspired by the Japanese folklore. There is an old legend, a legend about fisherman, forbidden meal and immortal girl. One day a fisherman caught a great fish, so he invited his friends for a dinner. While the rest was talking and drinking, one of them peeked into the kitchen. He realized that the great fish had a human face. He warned the rest. Nobody ate the terrible meal. They wrapped it in the paper instead. with intention to throw it away as soon as they return home. Unfortunately, one of them was so drunk that he forgotten to do so. In the morning, he realized that his daughter ate the fish. Long story short, I mean really long story short, she lived for the 800 years. Her name was Yao Bikuni, and the fish she ate was a nyangyo. Nyangyo. A mermaid-like creature. Besides their names being similar, Yao Bikuni for many years of her long life worked as a nun. The monk we face in the bridge wears a nun outfit. Night Eye. It's not a big secret that Wolf can see pretty good in the dark. Other From Software games would require you to use some lantern or torch to see in those conditions. One of the loading screens mentioned a Night Eye, passive ability that shinobi possess. It turns their eyes yellow in the dark and lets them see clearly. Demon of Hatred Identity. Demon of Flames is here yet again. You may know how to find him, but do you know who this demon really is? He is the sculptor himself. And this is not a theory, it's confirmed in game. If you eardrop on Sculptor and Emma's conversation, and then talk with him, you will learn that Shura, a demon of destruction, is crawling inside Sculptor's body. He asks Sekiro to make a promise. When the time comes, he will put him out of his misery. An old maid near the castle gate.
You know, don't you? You know who the one-armed demon was before.
No.
I see. It might be better that way.
And the Buddha statues that the beast throws at you further confirms this fact. Tomoe is Okami. If you're not super into Sekiro lore, you probably have two questions now. Who the hell is Tomoe and who the hell are Okami? Tomoe is important character. It's very important character, in fact, that isn't present in the game, sadly. She was the mentor of Genichiro.
Behold the lightning of Tomoe.
She taught him how to fight with lightnings. She was also protector of Takeru, who was a divine heir before Kuro. And Okami? They are Okami, the habitats of the Fountainhead Palace, carp-like creatures that worship Sakura Dragon. In the description of Fragrant Flower we read, it is said that the relatives of Tomoe once gathered the Fountainhead fragrance and arrived at the palace. This, along with her fighting techniques which involved lightnings, forms a strong evidence to the theory that she was of the Okami clan. Ishin is Tengu. Tengu is this tall rat exterminator we meet at the castle gate after the fight with Yeah, with this guy. There are a couple evidences that prove this theory. First, Tengu hates ministry rats, and we know that they were sent to spy on Ishin. Second, Tengu gives us Ashina esoteric text.
Wonderful. Here's your reward. Take it.
From which we can learn combat techniques developed by Lord Ishin himself. Third, after speaking to the Tengu in the Great Serpent Shrine, we can see his costume in Ishin's room. That means that this theory is 100% true. Inner bosses. After beating certain bosses, you unlock special gauntlets of strength. They are basically boss rush mode challenges, and there are 3 of them, each with their own thematic bosses. For example, the Gauntlet of Strength. You fight Emma, the Gentle Blade, Ishin Ashina, Demon of Hatred, and Inner Father All. The last boss in Gauntlet is a special encounter, so-called inner boss. They are not totally new bosses, but rather enhanced versions. 3 Gauntlets gives us 3 inner bosses, with new moves, new attacks and surprises. We have already mentioned inner Father All. There are also inner Genichiro Ashina and inner Ishin Sword Saint. They are pretty cool for gamers who seek more difficult challenges. Yashariku Power Up. This refers to the Yashariku Sugar or Yashariku Spiritfall. Items that, when used, cut our health in half in exchange for massive damage boost. From Yashariku Spiritfall, we know that Yashariku was a fallen hero that once fought for his country. There are 5 types of sugars and Spiritfall power-ups. Each is named after a corrupted hero. We know that sugars were crafted and distributed by the Senpu monks. They use sugars themselves, all but one, the Yashariku sugar. It's probably because its power brings you closer to death, and this was against monks' beliefs. Actually, there is pretty good reason why it cuts your health in half. You see, Yashariku's twin brother was stillborn. We even encounter both of them in the lake of Fountainhead Palace, where, we destroy them basically. Owl Father, Old Shinobi, foster father of our protagonist, Owl. There are a few really good secrets about this old fella, but most of them are located deeper into Iceberg. For now, I can tell you that he raised young Wolf basically to be his slave. He used to say,
"As your father, my word is absolute. Your master's is a close second."
As I said, more on the Father All later in the video. The monkey's Divine Abduction. Divine Abduction is a prosthetic tool. It's a golden fan that after being used rotates enemies so we can easily go for the death blow. If you use it on a Senpu monks, they just disappear. It works on almost every enemy in the game. The Taro Troop. Those big mutant babies armed with hammers and bells. They are crazy, right? Why are they like this? You see, the Ashina is under constant threat of invasion from the Interior Ministry. There are 2 things that hold them back from attacking this ancient land. First one is Lord Ishin. They fear him so much. The other one is, or rather are, Waters of Rejuvenation. So, since Ishin won't last forever, Ashina people started experimenting with the ungodly water. Taro troops are one of the outcomes of those experiments. Evidences? The Kotaro. Taro monk that is crying under the tree outside the Senpu temple. When we send him to the dungeon so the Dogen successor can experiment on him, he tells us that he may meet his father, and surely in one of the cells of the abandoned dungeon we find a rotting prisoner's note. It ends with this line, "Kotaro, forgive me." Kingfisher. Kingfisher was Sculpture's friend. When they were younger as rogue shinobis, they used to train in the Sunken Valley. The Sculpture tells us about it when given monkey boost.
It burns the throat, same as ever. This really brings back memories. There were 2 of us. We were rogue shinobi. There was no proper master for the likes of us. That's why we went to the valley. To run, to jump, to clash swords. Where one slip would mean your doom. And I'd listen to the howl of my partner's whistling finger while I drank.
After we defeat Guardian Ape, we get a slender finger with a ring on it. It belonged to the Kingfisher. Sadly, she was eaten by the ape. Sculpture can craft for us a prosthetic tool upgrade when we give him this ring. Sekiro. You probably know that Sekiro means one-armed wolf.
That's it. A one-armed wolf. Sekiro.
Well, Sekiro means one-armed orangutan. Guess whose nickname this is? That's right, you clever little sausage. One-armed orangutan is Sculpture. Since he trained a lot with monkeys in Sunken Valley, his movement during combat, his fighting style was very similar to the one of, well, Monkey. But there is still a question. How did he lose his left arm? After the death of his dear friend, Kingfisher, the flames of rage started building inside him, specifically in his very left hand. It was Lord Ishin who saved him from becoming consumed by the demon Shura. As we know, in the end, the flames of hatred get the best of him and he became Demon of Hatred. Takeru death. I already told you that Takeru was a divine heir before Kuro. That means that he also was immortal, and yet we find his grave in the Ashina castle. His protector, Lady Tomoe, was helping him in severing the immortality ties. Unfortunately, she was unable to get the red mortal blade, the only weapon able to make the divine dragon cry. But not the only weapon able to kill immortal beings. There is a second mortal blade, a black mortal blade. The theory goes that she used the black blade to behead Takeru and then killed herself to stop the spread of the dragon rot. Owl's true name. Here's all that I was able to find about his name. His real name is Ukonozamon Usui. Sorry for the pronunciation. We learn it in Shura's ending. Fun fact, he doesn't really say his full name.
Country is ours for the taking.
Because he's interrupted by us, I guess. But thanks to the fact that in Japanese version he says his last name first and in English he says his first name first, we were able to piece them together. His name might be a reference to the Sadamitsu Usui. Sorry for the pronunciation, again. One of the legends about him tells a really interesting story. Sadamitsu Usui, oh I think that was pretty good, one day found an orphan of low birth. That orphan later became a famous demon hunter. As you can see, there are some parallels between those two characters. Tomoe and the Black Blade. To cover this one, I would have to repeat what I already said in the Takeru death entry. As something new, I can tell you other name for the mortal Black Blade. And that is Keimon, which in Japanese means open gate. It is said that it can be used to open the gates to the underworld. I also found a theory suggesting that the Black Blade is the very same weapon that Ishin wields during the coup in the opening cinematic. It isn't black, but as anonymous author of this post on Sekiro Wiki wrote, it has the same hilt, tsuba, double edges and taper. The single white pinwheel. While exploring Mount Kongo, we see many pinwheels scattered along the way. The Taro monk Kotaro asks us to find a pure white flower. But it isn't a flower he seeks, it's the pinwheel. What are those pinwheels? What do they represent? Well, as you can already know, Senpu monks experimented heavily on kidnapped children. Most of the people see them as monsters without conscience. But they were at least a bit sorry for the lives they have ended, as they paid a small tribute to the victims. A tribute in the form of those very pinwheels.
Forgive me.
that child. She's the only one left.
As you know, only one divided child of rejuvenation survived the experiments. A white flower, a white pinwheel, represents that child. Emma, Genichiro, Sekiro, all orphans, all adopted. That's true, 100% true, but I wouldn't be that much surprised about it. You see, one of the core themes of the Sekiro are the parental issues, and making main characters and adopted orphans or foster parents gives the writers many interesting possibilities to explore this topic. Let's take Wolf as an example. He was raised by an owl who saved him on the battlefield. Two of them share very unusual relation. The first rule of the owl's teaching says, your father's word always comes first, your master's a close second. And in a pivotal moment of the story, Wolf must decide if he wants to stay loyal to his foster father, even if it means doing very immoral things, or if he will disobey the Iron Code and start living by his own rules. Really, this is so interesting topic that I might do a video about it. Tell me, what do you think about it in the comments below, cause there is a lot to cover. Oh, and since we are at this self-promotion part, if you like Sekiro, I assume you're also familiar with Bloodborne, because I made an Iceberg video about Bloodborne, and it will be cool if you check that out if you're into this stuff. Anyways, let's continue. How did Ishin die? He died from an illness, or at least that's what we are told. One thing doesn't match up for some people, and that is his sword is right next to him. They say that Emma killed him or that it was Genichiro, but come on, they wouldn't be able to kill Ishin, we both know that. They also say that he committed seppuku, but why would he? In one of his dialogues he says that if it will be necessary, he will fight his grandchild, Genichiro. That proves that he still cares for the Ashina. He is not a man who would abandon his land when it needs him the most. For me, all of those theories don't make any sense. Infested. To be infested means to be a host to immortal centipede, which makes you immortal too. This bit is very interesting. What are those creatures? Where did they came from? Do hosts feel them inside their body? We can only theorize about those questions. My guess would be, but I am not saying that I am the author of this theory, that the centipedes originated from the rejuvenating waters. You see, at the Fountainhead Palace, at the bottom of the lake, there is a corpse of carp, and on that corpse there are many small worm-like creatures. They are feeding on it. And we know that divine waters give you immortality. Centipedes too. I believe that they are related to each other somehow. The guarding ape, Senpu monks, corrupted monk, all of them are infested and all of them are closely related to the rejuvenating waters. As to the question how it feels to have centipedes inside you, well, we know that at certain point they take control over the host. Precisely when it's dead or close to dying. Guardian ape in its phase fights like a monkey would, but then after we cut its head off, its moveset drastically changes. Now the centipedes are in charge and it's very apparent. But again, Hanbei lets us kill him many times and a centipede security system is nowhere to be seen. The invisible children are real. After giving Kotaro a white pinwheel, he wants Wolf to spirit him away. If we do that, he teleports to the Hall of Illusions, the location where the fight against annoying monkeys takes place. He sits there happily. He tells us that he takes care of little children, children that we cannot see? Well, it turns out that they are in fact in front of you. If you try to attack space around Kotaro, a familiar effect will show up. It's the same effect that appears if you try to attack friendly character. It is really nice touch to the environmental storytelling. Genichiro chased the monkeys. In the Hall of Illusions there is a Buddhist monk. He tells us that some time ago there was someone else trying to defeat the folding screen monkeys. We know that Genichiro wants to kill us. He would need a mortal blade for that, so it's pretty safe to assume that the warrior that Monks mentions is Genichiro Ashina himself. But fortunately to us, he didn't have enough patience nor skills required to get the monkeys down. I like to believe that the mysterious warrior could also be Lady Tomoe, as we know that she also sought a mortal blade in the past. The Pot Nobles. Fairly early in the game you can meet a rather weird dude sitting in a giant pot by the river. Huranaga is his name. He asks us about the carp scales, in exchange for which he offers us very useful items. He seems nice, but much later in the Fountainhead Palace we meet his rival sitting in a very similar pot. The Koremori is his name. He tells us not to trust the other one. He explains that he wishes to become a great Sakura carp, and for that he needs carp scales. Don't know how it's supposed to work, but maybe I don't want to know. Eventually both pot nobles give you Precious Bite. It's a poison meant to kill a great Sakura carp. Depending on whose bite we choose, that noble will transform into not so great carp, and the other one will vanish. Well, it wasn't any secret, but a cool story nonetheless. Upside down bodies in Mibu. In a Mibu village lake there are a lot of dead bodies. But I think this shouldn't surprise anyone. We know about sacred marriage ritual. To become a Fountainhead Palace noble was a really great prestige, and to be able to enter the palace one must partake in such a ritual. But to even attempt it, you would have to first learn a secret Mibu breathing technique. A technique that allows you to breathe underwater, just like the carps do. The Okami clan are a carp hybrid. So, you know, being able to breathe underwater is kinda necessary if you wanna live among them. Headless Sibling. Remember Yashariku from the beginning of this video? Yeah, this point is about him again. Don't get me wrong, this is a really great iceberg, but some of the things could be merged together, like the Demon of Hatred and Demon of Hatred Identity, for example. They are about the same thing. Still, I'm saying this only because I value feedback a lot. If you didn't know, this iceberg is in fact a second version of a Sekiro Iceberg made by the same guy, and if you ask me, it's a huge step up from the previous one. Keep the good work, man. On that note, if you have any criticism towards my video, this video, I would be more than happy to read it in the comment section below. Thanks in advance. Digression over. Let's continue. The hanging bodies in Mibu. Near the hut where you fight a mist noble, on a branch of great tree hangs a corpse of an old monk. Not far from him is another hanging body of another monk. There is very easy explanation to this. The ruined hut was in the past a Buddha shrine. Two monks were probably worshipping him when the Okami invaded. We know that the Sakura dragon came from the west and casted out the old gods such as Buddha and great serpents. There is even one monk still alive. He asks us to kill the invader from the shrine of Buddha. Guardian Ape's first bride. There is little known about its first mate. We know that the ape guarded the flower for the female, but we don't see her in its first fight. In the Ashina depths during second phase, there is actually a smaller female monkey helping the headless ape, but she is not his first bride. After the fight is over, if you explore the cave a little bit, you will notice this shelf, and on that shelf a corpse, a skeleton of what was probably its first bride. The 17 Shadows, or as they are also called, Lone Shadows, or even rats for some reason. They are those annoying warriors that kick you with their bare smelly feet. They are Interior Ministry secret spies. They were sent to spy on old Lord Ishin. That's why Ishin, while dressed as Tengu, calls them rats. He despises them. From the 8th prayer necklace we read, Lone Shadows are the Interior Ministry's most trusted agents. Each of leader Matsumoto Oribe's, sorry for pronunciation, 17 born has a specialty, from poison to shinobi hounds. Sakura Dragon is from Korea. Okay, so we know that Sakura Dragon came from foreign land, from the west. First guess would be that he came from China. After all, dragons are very often portrayed as China's national animal. That is by media outside China. Media that want to hit that sweet 1 billion target demographic. Anyways, what holds this fury relevant is a sword that the dragon uses. You see, this sword is identical to the 7-branched sword, a legendary Japanese sword that was forged by Chinese. The one on this picture is just a replica though, since the original has been conserved due to its cultural significance. Okay, Chinese sword kept by Japanese people. Why the Korean origin then? It turns out that the design of the 7-branched sword originated from Korea. Crowns of Silla are a good example. You can clearly see the similar branched motif on them. Sekiro likes sweets. Sekiro loves sweets. Mount Congo sweets are the greatest, prove me wrong. Lone Shadows' hidden hand. While fighting them or running away from them, which is in my case, it is very easy to assume that they only have one hand. The other one is covered in black and stays hidden as they don't use it that much. They do this for a surprise element, I guess, and only use their other arm for special attacks such as poison or shuriken throws. It's probably just their fighting style. Headless Genichiro. If you decide to stay loyal to the Iron Code and ally with the Owl, you unlock Shura ending. After defeating Emma and Ishin Ashina, the cutscene plays in which Owl throws something in front of the dying Ishin.
Despite his age, few could hope to defeat a man such as Ishin.
If you use a mod and enable freecam, you will see that it is ahead of Genichiro. While we were fighting Emma and Ishin, Owl was fighting Genichiro instead. We can also figure it out on our own without using any mods. You see, Old Shinobi has a black mortal blade when he returns after our fight. We know that Genichiro was in a possession of this very weapon. The sculpture's shinobi costume. One of the in-game costumes description reads, "The memory of a shinobi that once served Ashina." Many believe that this is a memory of the sculpture, albeit when he was younger. We know that at the beginning he was a rogue shinobi, a shinobi without a master, but that doesn't mean later he didn't have one. We know about specific relation between him and Lord Ishin. Ishin cared for Sekiro's life, he saved it, so it is not impossible that he offered him a job as an Ashina shinobi. Inner bosses take place in far future. No, just no. I can think of no proof for this theory. In fact, I think that inner bosses are kinda like dreams. Hear me out. One of the supposed reasons for dreaming is to learn. When you're having a dream about crazy, uncomfortable situation, you learn how to respond to those situations in a safe environment. I think this is happening to the wolf when he meditates upon reflections of strength. And at the end of each, when he faces inner boss, well, it's just his imagination making an encounter harder for him so he can practice before the real battle. Snake Eyes are descendants of Okami. Snake Eyes are those mummy-like female snipers we fight in a sunken valley. What evidences do we have that those warriors are descendants of the Carp people of the Fountainhead Palace? For starters, it's the description of the Subimaru. Wielded in wars of old, the blade's blue rust was used to drive off inhuman Okami warrior women. Even now, it is very effective against their descendants. Subimaru is a poison weapon, and snake eyes are incredibly prone to its toxin. Bottom of the sunken valley is a very poisonous place. That's why the clan that lives and mines precious metals there developed antidotes that help them adapt. But even with those antidotes, Snake Eye's biggest weakness is still the blade that was used in the war against their Okami ancestors. Truly precious bait. I already told you about this bait in the entry about the pot noble. Well, maybe I tell you something you didn't know. The Carp attendant, this tall, peaceful Okami, when you attack this dude, he attacks you back. His moveset is exactly the same as the moveset of Chained Ogre. Here you go. Let's continue. The old woman of the Fountainhead Palace. While exploring the palace, we stumble upon this very nice old lady. It's very unexpected to see another human face in such a place. How did she get there, and why the palace nobles are not attacking her? Years ago, she, along with her sister and their father, lived in a Mibu village and found their way to the Fountainhead Palace through a marriage ritual. Somehow, their father was transformed into Okami. However, instead of living joyful, never-ending life, he was tricked into never-ending slavery. Years passed. He was mindlessly taking care of the divine carp, and his daughters, they were getting older and older, to the point where palace nobles were not bothered by them at all. They almost couldn't see them. Okami attack Wolf because of his youth. They want to absorb it. Since two sisters are so old, the palace nobles don't care about them anymore. Lady Butterfly failed immortality. When the Lady Butterfly is defeated, you get Sakura Droplet, a very powerful item that is closely related to the immortality. The fact that she hypnotized Kuro with her illusions may point us to the theory that she wanted to get the immortality, and if Wolf wouldn't step in, she would be the one to get the immortal service. This is purely theoretical, but still interesting to think about. Mistranslations. As you probably already know, Sekiro is a Japanese game. And, as it usually is when you translate a game to a foreign language, there are some mistranslations. I won't be able to cover all of them in this video, so here are some of the most interesting ones, at least to me.
My name is Kyobu Masataka, and you move in haste and die, breath!
This introduction to a pretty decent battle is already very iconic. Sadly, if you're not a Japanese speaker, those lines won't have the same impact on you. In Japanese version of the game, Ginyobu uses very archaic Japanese to introduce himself. For Japanese players, saying "my name is" in that setting is almost like saying "Hi, what's up?" to greet your friend in the Middle Ages. Another thing is the word fountainhead. In English it means origin of source of something, I don't know. But in Japanese it is also the title of a famous Japanese royal clan, the Minamoto clan. And story of this clan has a lot of similarities to the clan Okami. Here is the armor of this clan from the Genpei War. Looks familiar? If you want to learn more, read the articles to which links are in the sources in the description below. Spiritfall invocations. In Japanese, instead of the word spiritfall, they say mita ma orshi. This is a made-up word combining two other words. Kamiromoshi, which means invocation of a god, but they replace the word god with mitama, a word for spirit. So we should say invocation of a spirit of Akko rather than Akko's spiritfall. It also turns out that the candies aren't named after the headless. They are in fact named after the Buddhist deities. There is a theory that the heroes that turned into corrupted headless got their powers from learning those godly invocations. There is a lot to unpack, so I recommend you read this super interesting Reddit post for more details. Isshin vs Hanbei. If you didn't know, there is actually a manga dedicated to the story of Hanbei, the Undying. I won't spoil you the whole story, just the things that are important for this entry. It turns out that the lord that Hanbei talks about in game was General Tamura, the warrior that Isshin kills in the opening cinematic.
General Tamura is no more!
Hanbei witnessed the death of his master and wanted to take a revenge on young Lord Isshin. As you probably already guessed, Isshin quickly demolished Hanbei with double Ichimonji. The moral of this story? You don't fuck with the Isshin. The Fountainhead Drink, or the Water of the Palace, you choose. You can find this item by diving underwater in this location. Many players don't realize, by many players I mean I didn't realize, that you can actually give this drink to the priest in the Mibu village. He will reward you with a Dragon Spring sake, but return to him later to find out that he turned into a palace noble. Now the real fun begins. Kill him. Kill him. He will drop 5 carp scales, which just proves that Okami are carp-like people. Great Serpent Wedding. The ritual of marriage. But we should rather understand it as a ritual of offering oneself, since the word marriage has more than one meaning in Japanese. We should start with understanding a ceremonial tent. We first see it in a valley where we play hide and seek with a giant snake. You know exactly how this ends. Another one of those tents is placed in a wedding cave. A wedding ceremony is a ceremony in which one sacrifices himself to a deity. A wolf takes part in such a ritual. That's the only way to get to the Fountainhead Palace after all. This way Ashina people, and probably Okami clan too, worshipped a Sakura dragon. The third ceremonial tent is found inside a palace, not far from the hill on which we enter the Divine Realm to fight this very Sakura dragon. You already know that there is a high chance that Sunken Valley clan is related to palace nobles. It shouldn't surprise you then that they worship their gods, serpents, in a very same way that the Okami clan worships Sakura dragon. Shura is Gale. I couldn't find anything explaining this theory. Oh, if you aren't a Dark Souls fan, Gale is the final boss of the final DLC in Dark Souls 3. He is very important for the story.
Hand it over, that thing, your dark soul.
There is no bridge between Dark Souls and Sekiro. While there were numerous things connecting, for example Bloodborne and Dark Souls universes, we cannot find any links when it comes to the Sekiro. So no, Shura is not Gale. Ishin's Blade. This entry is probably again about mentioned before theory regarding Ishin and the Black Mortal Blade, the one that he used in his coup, but you know me, I'm not going to repeat myself. Dojin and Dosaku, but first we must learn about Dogen, the great inventor of Ashina. He raised and taught Emma everything she knows. He created famous prosthetic arm for sculpture. Sadly, he passed away, and most of his research papers vanished as well. Dojin and Emma were his students, but Dojin had another teacher, mysterious Dr. Dosaku. We find Dojin in abandoned dungeon. He is seeking a human subject on which he and his master, Dosaku, want to experiment. I must also point out that Dogen and Dosaku didn't like each other at all. From reading the description of Academic Red Lamp and Rot Essence Surgeons, we learn that Dojin and Dosaku are in fact one and the same person. Dosaku experimented heavily with rejuvenating waters. He is responsible for all those red-eyed monsters like Chained Ogre or Red-Eyed Warriors. Eventually he went insane, and it is Wolf who has to put him down. In the opening is the Mortal Blade. And yet again, third entry about Ishin having Black Mortal Blade in opening cinematic. The Monk for Hire. There is one monk that we can technically hire in game. By that I mean hire on behalf of a merchant. And that is our favorite, baby-faced Kotaro. Instead of spiriting him away, he can be sent to work as an Anayama the Paddler's little helper. And in fact, he is a great helper. The monk seems really happy and fulfilled thanks to a new job that he has. And that should make you happy, because that makes me happy. And that should make you happy as well. The old dragons are rot. After reaching the Divine Realm, you face many small dragons, and they are sick. The cause of their illness or its purpose is not entirely clear. Some suggest that it's just how they are, and it is because of them that the rejuvenating waters make people lose their humanity. Others suggest that they weren't always like that. They claim that it was all taking the branch out of the sakura tree that caused them to get sick. There is very little explained about them in game, and I am looking forward to see your opinions on this subject. Parrying the Great Serpent. This is gonna be very quick. Technically, yes. By that I mean you can get a parry effect and don't get stagger effect, but you will still take damage, so yeah. Inosuke's family. Inosuke Nagami, he is a man that we meet at the castle outskirts, dying on the ground. His mother is nearby too. She mistakes us for her son.
Oh, is that you, Inosuke? My son.
And gives us a young lord's bell charm, an item that lets us access an old memory of Hirata Estate assault. And at Hirata, right before Lady Butterfly Arena, we meet Inosuke once again, blinded, half dying. He tried to stop Lady Butterfly, but was no match for her terrifying illusions. It is even possible that he blinded himself after seeing them. He gives us snapseeds, which are meant to fade away the illusions. If we return to him at Ashina outskirts after defeating Lady Butterfly, he dies. This is a very sad story that introduces yet another time travel paradox. Thank you, Inosuke. The Appartition. There are 3 groups of Appartition enemies in Sekiro. I already covered Headless in a couple previous entries. There is also Orin of the Water and Shishimen warriors. There is very little known about their past. Most of what we know are just the theories. great lore YouTuber, Smowtown, you must watch him, suggested that Orin of the Water is wife of Lord Sakuza, the very same guy she wishes to find.
What are you sad about?
I don't know where Lord Sakuza is, or what he's doing.
Jijimaon Kumano, a samurai that hears music, is probably a Lord Sakuza. We can make this assumption because he is drawn by the Orin's shamisen.
Hear it, as if it is calling out for someone, crying. Perhaps it is calling to me.
And dies right after we defeat her. But before he passes away, he gives us Jinza's Jesus statue. This statue was a gift for Lord Sakuza. It was probably a gift from Orin herself. Now about Shishimen warriors. Shishimen in Japanese means seven-faced. And if we take a closer look, we can see that they have numerous masks covering their armor. They are manifestation of death that took place in Ashina. Think about it. Where do we find those warriors? First is in abandoned dungeon, standing literally on a mass grave of vassals that died during the Great Rebellion. We know this fact from the stone monument that is located nearby. Another one is in a cave that we fight Headless Ape and its mate. It even drops a malcontent ring which belonged to a kingfisher, further proving that he is here because of the deaths. The last one is found in a Fountainhead Palace. You know that the palace nobles are feasting on each other. Kami warriors are basically killing machines, and we know that they invaded Ashina at least once. So again, a lot of dying. If you wanna learn more about the apparitions of Ashina, be sure to watch this video on YouTube. Link is in the description below. Parrying the Shishimen laser. I hated this attack so much until I learned that you can parry it. Yes, that's right. Knowing this makes those annoying enemies a lot easier. If you're still struggling, a divine confetti is a must-have. All apparition enemies are super vulnerable to it. Also, if you have an anti-air death blow skill, you can basically one-shot them when they fly around. Just remember to have confetti put on. Inosuke in Outskirts was an illusion. This could technically explain the time travel paradox resulting from this questline. Sadly, I wasn't able to find any theories on the internet, so I will present you my own interpretation of this entry. My guess is that the Owl created this illusion. Why him? We know that he knew Lady Butterfly rather well. After all, he sent his foster son, Wolf, to train with her. Owl probably learned a few illusions from her. In fact, we know this for sure because in a secret fight against Father Owl, he uses magic to summon illusory Fire Owl. But why would he create an illusion that would send us on a path to kill Lady Butterfly? We know that he is a selfish man, or rather was, and that he cares about the power of a dragon heritage. My guess is that he wanted her death for the exact reason. He didn't want to share that power with her. Let me know what do you think about this theory. Versus Shishimen and Ape duo. I have no idea what it is supposed to mean. Maybe it's a mistype of some sort? Versus Isshin Ashina and Emma. This should not be this low on this iceberg. I think it's pretty well known, but here we go. At a pivotal moment in a story, that is, when Wolf's foster father shows up at the castle top, we have two options, but you already know this. If we side up with all, Emma shows up to stop us. One of her sake dialogues reveals that she is a trained warrior, but she will never fight a human being, probably due to her Hippocratic oath. She will, however, fight a demon if one stands in front of her. By betraying Lord Kuro, Wolf slowly becomes Shura, the demon of hatred. This is why Emma wants to stop us. When we defeat her, Isshin Ashina himself shows up. He also sees the flames of hatred boiling inside Wolf. After a long fight, we defeat him as well. Again, I don't know how this counts as a theory or a secret, but I'm here to explain, not hate. Secret prosthetic. There is no such a thing. There are 10 prosthetic tools with multiple variants each, and there is no way there is a secret 11th one in the game. The modders would have found it by now. There are no theories on the internet regarding secret prosthetic tools. It sounds really cool, but without any backstory, theories to support it, it only sounds cool. Shishimen follow great suffering. Oh yeah, this is 100% true, but you know that already, because I already told you that. So let's jump to the next, final layer. Isshin seppuku wound. When you take a closer look at the Isshin's model, you will notice a big wound on his abdomen. There have been theories that this is a proof of him committing seppuku at the end of the game, but we can clearly observe the same wound when he is still alive. Others say that Isshin tried to commit seppuku in his past, and this is why he has this scar now. That's very unlikely, that is, unless there is something important about his past that we don't know. The safest theory explains that it's just a battle wound, probably from the times of his rebellion. Shinobi illusions. One of the skills that Shinobi has is ability to create powerful illusions. Lady Butterfly was a master in this technique. She practiced it in a remote Usui forest in her childhood. Later, in that very same forest, she trained young Wolf on behalf of his foster father. There is little known about the nature of those illusions. It's possible that they are only mind tricks and they don't have a physical form. Inosuke probably blinded himself because he couldn't stand what he saw in Lady Butterfly's illusions. That probably saved his life. If he couldn't see illusions, they couldn't affect his mind and they couldn't hurt him. Isshin trained with monkeys. Tales say that one day Isshin Ashina taught a white monkey to use sword while drying on the sake. This monkey would later be known as the deadliest being in all of Ashina. This is only theory, don't panic, but it's very interesting nonetheless. You probably know that the sculptor and his friend Kingfisher taught monkeys how to fight and use firearms. Maybe monkeys observed them training. We know after all that Sculptor trained in a sunken valley, but we also know that he trained with monkeys. With. This means that they would have to be a worthy opponents by that time already. We know that Isshin loved Ashina, so he probably visited many places around the land. We also know that he is a sake lover.
Ah, Sekiro, you know me well. Why, this isn't monkey booze. So this is what it's like to breathe fire. Do you know what other name this sake goes by?
Especially monkey booze. So, you know, this isn't unlikely, but after all, those are just theories. And what do you think about them? Kuro is Takeru's reincarnation. In many Eastern religions, reincarnation is a common concept. If super simplified, it boils down to the recycling a soul after a body dies. You probably didn't know this, but Dalai Lama, the spiritual and political leader of Tibetan nation, is not just one man. It's a title passed down onto the next reincarnation. After the current Dalai Lama passes away, the search for his reincarnation begins. When they finally find a child that is supposed to be his reincarnation, they teach him all the important stuff so he can become their new leader. This is very interesting for me. Anyway, going back to Sekiro, Kuro and Takeru both were of the dragon's heritage, but there is no direct evidence in the game that Kuro is reincarnation of Takeru. Guardian Ape avenged his child. In the Sekiro prequel manga, we read that the Guardian Ape killed and ate a character named Hermit. Hermit was famous for eating apes. He even wears a white fur out of a monkey he likely killed. The scene takes place in the mountains, which are pretty far away from Guardian Ape's home, Sunken Valley. There is a theory that the ape made all this effort for chasing this one man because Hermit killed his child. It's not unlikely that the fur he wears belonged specifically to the great ape's child. Mist Noble is Takeru. There is this very interesting theory written by Reddit user GrandU238. I will summarize it now, or at least try. We know that a cave in a Mibu village is a door of some sort to the Fountainhead Palace, the source of immortality corruption. Takeru knew the true nature of the divine gift of immortality and wanted to stop it. The theory goes that, pay attention here, cause this is a bit complicated. Senpu monks would use fake divine child's blood to create the Fountainhead aroma and gain access to the palace. And let's pause right there, because this shit doesn't make sense already. We know that monks didn't have access to the divine child of rejuvenating waters, so they wouldn't be able to take her blood. But the very idea of Takeru blocking the way to the Mibu, and by that to the palace, is an interesting one, nonetheless. Of course, there is still problem of Takeru's grave in the Ashina castle. The Redditor explains that it is a fake one, created so people wouldn't ask too many questions. I can't say I agree with this theory, but who knows what's sitting in Miyazaki's head. Sekiro is strongest in Soulsborne. So, is Wolf really the strongest protagonist in From Software's games? He fought and defeated one god, the Divine Dragon, and one demon, Demon of Hatred. He can use many prosthetic tools and is really good with his katana. Oh, and he is immortal, by the way. Who do we have to take under consideration when we talk about his competition? Chosen Undead, protagonist from the Dark Souls 1. By the end of the game, he has defeated at least 3 gods. He is a master swordsman, master mage, and he has advanced knowledge when it comes to casting miracles. Then we have Bearer of the Curse from Dark Souls 2. He also defeated couple godlike beings. By the end of the game, he has the ability to become a Lord of Cinders, which is kinda a big deal. And finally, from Dark Souls 3, we have the Ashen One. Again, he's super duper powerful, and I personally think he could eat Sekiro for breakfast. Okay? Alright, I almost forgot about the Pale Blood Hunter from the Bloodborne. He is the one who eats Lovecraftian eldritch gods for breakfast. So, yeah, if you ask me, Sekiro is nowhere near being the most powerful protagonist in the Soulsborne games. However, if he would jump on a tree, any character from other games would not be able to reach him. You know what? Take it back, Sekiro is the strongest protagonist. Anayama's 1 sen. Do not research. Okay, Sekiro versus Shura Wolfboss. There is well-known discussion among the Sekiro community. No, I'm just kidding. Let's research the previous entry. Anayama's 1 sen. Do not research. For real this time. Anayama the Paddlers. I already talked about him at the beginning. He is the merchant we meet right before the Chained Ogre. You probably know, I honestly don't know if I talked about it already or not, that you can set Kotaro to be Anayama's little helper. Oh, I remember now, I used the same joke about Kotaro being little helper. If that is what you did, then the final of their questlines is quite sad actually. During Inner Ministry invasion, we find Anayama badly wounded. Next to him on the ground is Kotaro, already dead.
Kotaro drove them away, at least. Right, pal? Oh, the big guy's fallen asleep.
Yes, he's sleeping soundly.
Please, don't make that face. There's nothing for you to be sad about, good sir.
The merchant has one last item, just for you. It only costs 1 sen. After you buy it, Anaima dies. This is surprisingly really emotional and sad end for both of them. They deserved so much better. Sekiro versus Shura Wolf Boss. Who would win? This is not a secret, it's a simple question. Sekiro has mastered all his combat styles, leveled up his vitality and posture to maximum. He defeated inner bosses and gotten stronger through practice in memories of battle. He is unstoppable. Shura Wolf, on the other hand, well, some suggest that he has really small health bar compared to the Sekiro at the end of the game. Wolf might have had a small health bar, but he is Wolf no more. He is Shura now, a demon, and that probably gave him a really big power boost. He also wields both mortal blades. So, who do you think would win such a battle? I would place my bet on Sekiro. Dragon's Blood Pellets. I will assume the author meant Dragon's Blood Droplets here. There really isn't much about this item, to be honest. It's a valuable item that can be used to cure dragon rot. How do they work? I have no idea. Where did they came from? Well, there is a theory for that actually. They are similar to a shelter stone, an item required in a marriage ritual. And it comes from the bodies of those who have long drunk from the fountainhead waters. Maybe they aren't connected in any way. In that case, I don't know what else can I say about this item. So, are you ready for the last one? Kusubimaru is made of fountainhead lapis. A fountainhead lazuli is a very strong material. It is said that the weapon made from it will never break thanks to the divine dragon's blessing. Well, we know that Kusubimaru, the wolf's katana, is really durable. It can take many powerful attacks such as Headless Apes, Overhead Slash, Ashina Elite's Double Lightning Fast Slash, Ishin Ashina's One Mind, Divine Dragon attacks. It can even deflect the Black Mortal Blade. Yes, I know this is just a game and it can break the laws of physics. But those lore analyses assume that we take every aspect of the game for real. So, what do we know? We know that this katana was an heirloom of Hirata family. My theory is that during the Great War between Ashina and Okami, one of Hirata warriors took this sword as a trophy from his dead adversary. He later found out about its power and offered it to his master, one of Hirata's lords. And then, years after, here we are, wielding this ancient weapon.